Welcome to Byrontology. Today's episode, I lost my virginity to a TV weatherman, what I learned about squall lines, dew points, and falling in love. Thanks for being here. I'm Byron Lane. This is where we take a tiny flashlight and look at the absurd, the awful, and the everyday. We try to find meaning, and sometimes we find hope, and sometimes humor, and sometimes just dog hair. But the important thing is the search, and that we're doing it together, and that we share what we find, and that we recognize the humanity in each other. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the humanity of this weatherman who I came to know quite well many, many years ago. I was working in a small town, and this weatherman, he was the kind of guy that the camera loves. The camera loved him. He would say things like squall line and dew point, and he made it sound so sexy. He'd wave his arms over a map of the town and tell us all what to wear. He was magnetic and charming, and I didn't just watch him on TV. We worked together. We worked at the same TV station together. It was a teeny tiny small town, and it was such a small town that the weatherman and I actually lived next door to each other. I still remember picking out that apartment. I still remember the layout. Uh, and then next door, his little apartment, I still remember that. His layout was easy to understand because his was teeny tiny. Mine was a little bit bigger, um, but not by much. So we were literally next door neighbors. In fact, the same owner owned both properties, and my apartment was on the second floor above a carport where the weatherman would park. So I would see his car outside of my front window every day, all the time. That's how tight of a town it was, and those were the conditions within which our friendship relationship grew. Let me tell you more about it. So we both worked at this teeny tiny TV station. When I got the job, one of the anchors there, she was also into real estate. So she was a by night, good evening, here's what's going on in the world. And by day, she was like, hey, want to rent this apartment? Want to buy this house? So she hooked me up with this apartment, and the weatherman who lived next door, he actually helped me move in, helped me carry my couch up the stairs to this place. So that's the kind of dynamics we're dealing with here. And he was a really special guy. He was truly intoxicating. And what I to this day remember most about him is his smell. And it wasn't like laundry detergent or cologne. It was like humanity. It was like manness. There was something about his smell that was like sunshine and aliveness. And it was the kind of smell, you know how dogs like will smell something on the ground and they'll like rub their bodies on top of it. That's what he was doing. Whatever scent emitted from this man, that's the effect it had on, for sure, me. I think other people too, but for sure, me. That's how his charm extended not just to a personality, but like his physicality was also very very charming. Now in this small town, I'm a news reporter. He's weatherman, obviously, as mentioned. And I'm new to being a news reporter, but that's not all I'm new to. I'm also new to being out uh, to myself. I wasn't out publicly, but I had just gotten out of college. I had just accepted that I was gay. And that was a long, difficult road because I grew up in a conservative town in Louisiana. Didn't even know a single gay person growing up. And so I always believed that being gay was something inside me that was rotten, that I needed to kind of gouge out. And I'd pray, I'd go to youth group meetings, I'd go to confession. These priests would hear me confess these dirty thoughts about other guys. And back then they called masturbation self-abuse. So I'd be like, oh, I committed self-abuse, you know. And these priests would look at me with like these wide eyes, and some of them greedy eyes, and enjoyed the stories. But none of that worked. And eventually I just kind of got to a place where I felt like, frankly, religion just seemed sort of made up, and and I had to let it go in order to live my own life. So I had just kind of come to appreciate that I was gay. So here I am in this town uh, where um, where I met the weatherman, and we were attracted to each other. But he made it very clear that he was not interested in a relationship. And I was like, oh, yeah, me neither. I get it. I'm cool. I'm cool. He was a little bit older than me, and he was a little bit more experienced. And he was also able to reshape the way I viewed gayness. Another thing that the church taught was that if you're gay, you're going to die. Not just hell, but you're going to get AIDS. You're going to be lonely and die painfully. And to this day, to be honest with you, many sexual experiences still have this residue of that lesson that they would teach you. Um, that a gay experiences became traumatic, all of them, and with just this fear of getting sick. It's different now. It's different now because of prep, and younger generations have it very different. But uh, for my generation, it was you're gay, you're dead, and it's going to be awful, and on the news. Like it was just all kind of disgusting. So here's this weatherman, older than me, wiser than me, smelled better than me, handsome, experienced in both the world and in television. And he taught me that being gay uh, could be something that's living. It's not something deadly. It could be something joyous. So he took me to the small town gay bar. He introduced me to some of his gay friends in this small town. And it was a really beautiful, lovely community. And all it did was make me love him even more. And then there was drama. The first little bit of drama was uh, was that an apartment opened up across the street from near where we lived. So we didn't get paid a lot of money as a TV people in a small town, and so this apartment opened up, and we had the chance to move in together. And I was like, "Let's do it! Let's do it! We'll save so much money. It'll be great." And he was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" And I was like, "Oh no, no! I understand. We're just friends, but we weren't just friends. Some late Saturday evenings turned into warm Sunday mornings cuddled together, and those well, the experience of my first sexual experience, it was beautiful, but it was also I mean, they wouldn't make a rom com about it. Well, thankfully, they wouldn't make a romantic movie about it. But I think in the movie version of it in my head, the camera would be my point of view. And what I remember is looking at the weatherman's face the next morning. Sunshine's coming in, his sunshine's coming in. His face, his eyes closed on the pillow next to me. Um, sweet, 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 sweet. Um, and uh, and I wanted that every day. Now, this apartment I wanted was a two bedroom. So we would have our own space. So when he was like, "We're just friends," I was like, "Definitely. You have your own room. I have my own room. We're living our lives," and we did it. We moved into this space, and it was a Sunday. It was a Sunday night, and I remember this because 6 Feet Under was on, and I worked the late shift. So I worked for the 10 o'clock news that night. It was Central Time, so instead of 11 o'clock news, they had the 10 o'clock news at that time. And so I worked late that night, and it was a hard, long day. All of those days were long and hard back in small town, and for small town journalists. I had my TV makeup on my face still. I was wearing my cheap little necktie from Macy's. I was carrying my suit on my shoulder, about to go into our apartment, and I open the doors, and he is in there with another guy. It's nothing scandalous. I mean, they're kind of intertwined, but they're first of all, they're sitting on my sofa, on the sofa that the weatherman helped me move into my apartment when I first moved into the small town. They're watching 6 Feet Under. It's over. So they're watching the end of 6 Feet Under. Um, and the worst thing is that they were burning my Pier 1 Imports candle. I had bought this purple Pier 1 Imports candle. It was expensive, and we didn't get paid a lot of money. So I had saved my money to get this purple candle. I think the scent was like, you know, summer rain, whatever. And and it was nearly burned down. I mean, and it was burned down messy, wax spilling out. I mean, the whole scene was like a horror movie for me. And his smell wasn't present, and it was strange, and it was like I forgot his smell, and that just kind of added to the heartbreak. And it's hard to say that he broke my heart because he told me up front this isn't a relationship, and I was very clear with him that I understood that. So in many ways, I think I broke my own heart, but I couldn't stay. I couldn't stay living there. And, it wasn't the first time that, but by today's standards, we would say that we had an open relationship, but that phrasing didn't exist then. And so he had been with other people, and I knew this, but this was the first time I saw it. And this was the first time that I couldn't deny it. And so I was pretty devastated. And the next day I moved out. The next day. The next day I found an apartment, moved my shit out, and I wasn't angry. It wasn't like that. I actually felt bad because I kind of left him in a lurch. He had this great deal on this other apartment, and I encouraged him to move into this 2 bedroom with me. And now he would have to find another roommate and all the drama. But when I told him, we both cried. It was it was actually very sweet, and that sweetness turned bitter real fast because it was a small town. I had one route to go to work every day, and this 2 bedroom apartment was on that route. So eventually, I started seeing another car in my parking space, my old parking space, someone staying over with him. And it was a yellow SUV. And for some reason, no offense if you have a yellow SUV, but it just makes me so angry. Even now, I have this weird visceral jealousy, rage at this yellow Nissan SUV. Like, who who has a yellow SUV? The nerve messing with my weatherman. Anyway, I was really a little bit out of it. I was starting to feel a lot of hurt, and so I needed a therapist. I knew the value of therapy even then. However, there was only one therapist available in this small town. There was only one therapist with an appointment, and she was a child therapist. She was like, "Come on." So I go to her office, and I go in. It's like little chairs, little sofas, and Barbie dolls with bad hair strewn about, Legos. I sit in one of the little sofas. She's in a little rocking chair, and she's sucking on a lollipop that's probably for one of her tiny clients. And we talk a little bit about the weatherman, and I tell her, I loved him, and she pops that lollipop out of her mouth, and she goes, "How do you know it was love?" Okay, now I ask people questions for a living. I interviewed politicians. I interviewed murderers. I interviewed old ladies whose husbands died in a house fire. That was my job, asking questions. And then here's this lady. Now she's turned it on me. Now she's asking me a question that is really hard, and ended up opening up a lot for me. So this question, how do I know it was love? it unhooked something. It unhooked some kind of pain. It loosened some grip that I had on this story about what had happened with the weatherman and I, and 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 I went on in my life for decades thinking about that question. And I think the big thing about it is that it was an introduction to this concept of self-inquiry. Self-inquiry. And there's a self-help guru from the 80s named Byron Katie, who I love, and she kind of pioneered this system really. But this was a primitive version of it. This therapist asking me, how do you know it was love? Because once you question an emotion that you think you're so sure of, suddenly it became a little bit easier to question all kinds of other emotions. Am I really this angry at someone? Um, am I really this jealous? Am I really jealous of what this person has? Do I really want what they have? Do I really want their life? So this sort of radical self-inquiry began in that little office, in that little chair, on that little sofa, with that lady with her lollipop, and I treasure it. Now I only saw her a few times over the years. I saw others, and this same idea kept surfacing over and over again. Happiness lives more in questions than answers. That was that was my big takeaway, and I still find that that's true today. That sometimes I'll have this habit where I am like, there's an answer for me. I can understand the cosmos if I just get this answer. But I think the cosmos is a question. I think it's a question mark, not a period. That is the source of happiness and comfort. That question mark can represent curiosity. It can represent open-mindedness, and I just think that's where the good stuff is. And I'm grateful that the weatherman gave me that. And it took decades before I kind of had an answer for what that child therapist was asking. Was it love? And it took many failed relationships, many therapists, and then it took the relationship that I'm in now that I can look at with such clarity and with such happiness before I can look back and answer what happened with the weatherman and say, was it love? And I think yes, but not the kind of love that you think, and not the kind of love that I thought at the time. I think it was like most young love. It was love of love. It was love of being young, love of taking a healthy risk with someone who felt safe. It was love of having a heartbreak, being open to having a heartbreak. It was love of seeking help when I needed it from that child therapist. I giggle because every now and then I wonder, like, I can't remember her name. Maybe I could find her, um, but I wonder about her sometimes. And you know what? You know who else I wonder about is my weatherman. And God, I hope he's happy. He deserves it. I did see him. I did see him years after we both left that TV station. And let me tell you something. He still smelled great. He still had this magical electric thing, whatever it is that makes the camera love him. He still had that thing that made me love him. He still affected the weather in me, but it was different. Obviously, we've both grown up, and our forecasts were very different too. And I think if I ever saw him again, I would ask him about this whole time and ask him what he thought and how does he look back on it. And he did tell me, he said, I really cared about you. And I told him I really cared about him too. And I think that if he had one of those fancy weatherman maps behind him, you know, and he had to kind of wave his arms around it and say and describe the forecast for our story, for the story of Byron and his weatherman, I think he would describe it as sunny and as beautiful and warm. And I'm so grateful for that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for participating in Byrontology just by existing and downloading this silly podcast, and maybe you're watching it. If you want to read the story, it's always at byrontology.com, and you can also find everything you need there. Some of our Byron books are there too, books that I wrote and print at home and fold up and staple and will mail to you. Books about therapy and life and all kinds of meaningful stuff. And there's also a Byrontology pen pal tier. If you want to be pen pals with me, you can sign up at byrontology.com. Thanks for being on this journey down memory lane with me. I'll see you next time.